their secondary and tertiary decks. But, you know, again, it's Hearthstone. It boils down to what actually ends up panning out. If, you know, we saw it from Viper, in our opinion. In our opinion, he made a mistake of not clearing off the Harrison Jones. That snowballed the game. One small step.
And that's how it is against this mage deck, is if you leave one minion on board for too long, you miss one answer, they will just absolutely run you over.
So, as Bozzzton, what do you think you're looking for in the opening hands here? You know, the early stages. He's got a couple copies of Shield Slam. The Warpath, maybe not so much, but the Shield Slams, woo! Those are nice.
Yeah, they are absolutely lovely, in addition with the Eternium Rover, perhaps, to get a little bit of extra armor, just in order to kill off that first mountain giant, or just first real threat, be it mountain giant or sea giant. You just want to kill it off before the Hunter's Call can come down.
What to do? What to do?
And on Kolento's side, you know, I imagine there's a lot of cards that are actually pretty decent draws for him, but at the same time, there's a lot of draws that are looking like they are pretty miserable draws for him.
Yeah, taking a look down the deck list, the cards he actually really wants to see, I'm thinking Arcane Intellect, Banana Buffoon to fill up the hand, Mana Cyclone or Stargazer Luna. Basically anything to fill up his hand to get that giant down as soon as possible.
Ooh, that's one of the worst ones.
Yeah, you don't love to see that.
That's a card that's so good versus decks that want to get on board with a bunch of little stuff, and so bad against decks that just don't really care about their minions, where their minions are just more expendable.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been, like, imagine last meta, and like when there was all the odd paladins and the spring paws knocking about from the mid-range hunters. Would have been crazy.
I think that probably was one of the things Kolento was thinking about, where he's like, you know, I'm going to have like a dead card in this slot anyway, in a matchup. Why not dedicate it to being super strong in the position I want it to?
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you think about its combination with, like, you know, the Mana Cyclone turns with Sorcerer's Apprentice, I feel like Dart Frog fits right into that game plan.
I mean, it's why players have been putting cards in their deck that benefit off of playing many spells in the same turn, be it the Vex Crow, the Questing Adventurer, or now the Magic Dart Frog from Kolento as well.
Wow, Bozzzton going to expend Warpath here. Kill off Sorcerer's Apprentice. I don't blame him for this.
Yeah.
You know, I was considering the Shield Slam with the coin. I think that this is way more efficient, where Warpath is just such a less valuable card in the matchup.
I completely agree. I mean, you made the reaction when we saw his starting hand, right? Like the Warpath, just don't really need it in this matchup all too often. It's not big enough to kill off the Conjurer's Calling stuff.
That's a trick for you. Triplet spell. That's when you got all three of them. Get it, because twin is 2. Triplet is 3.
Right. Oh, so instead of twin spells, it's triplet spells.
Yeah. That's what I was going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I fully agree with you. I think for Bozzzton, the main thing about killing off that Sorcerer's Apprentice right at the start wasn't even that he was afraid of the mana reduction on the spells. It was the chipping of his armor total that was really scary, because he needs that up to 8 as soon as he possibly can to get those shield slams on the giant.
And that's really a big question for me now, as well, is Bozzzton has the opportunity to wrench caliber here, but I actually feel like the armor ups are meaningful in this situation. Like, your opponent's not really doing anything.
What now?
So how does it actually discreetly break down? If you go up to 5 this turn, your opponent will not be able to giant next turn. Then you go up to 6, and then even if they ping your face, you're still getting up to 8, I think, if you armor this turn.
5 to 4 to 6 to 5 to 7.
That's if he pings face both turns, though, over the next couple turns. But I guess Bozzzton is thinking, if he is going to do that.
Looking at the main deck from Kolento, there is no weapon removal. No Harrison Jones, no Acidic Swamp Oozes. So he does not have a way to actually kill a weapon. And actually, looking at his secondary and tertiary decks, there's 1 copy of Harrison Jones that can fight weapons. That's it. The rest of it's like freezy stuff.
Really interesting spot now for Kolento, where he could actually play the giant now in this position with the elemental evocation into mounted giant as the kind of the thinking man's coin mountain giant.
Thinking man's coin mountain giant.
Okay, well, as in the not joke play of coin mountain giant. But I think I actually like his slightly more conservative line here, where, yes, you could get an 8/8 down on board, but with 2 Conjurer's Callings in hand, you really want to have the stuff that you can actually cast those spells on, which comes almost exclusively in this deck in the form of Mountain Giant. So you really want to be going on the same turn, Giant Conjurers.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing the game plan come together, where Kolento is just sacrificing life total in order to build to the Mountain Giant point. You know, this is why the Banana Buffoons, the Arcane Intellects, they're important cards to the deck, is they help accelerate these styles of turns, where you get out a Mountain Giant and Conjurer's Calling immediately on turn 6.
One thing I actually find very interesting about Kolento's line of play is the double ping on the Clockwork Goblin, because we've been talking a lot about the importance of getting that armor total up high. And if Kolento had gone for double ping on the face here, he might have been in a position where these shield slams were just that little bit less effective and wouldn't be able to kill off a giant.
Yeah, I think the nod is to life total. You know, he knows he's not going to be fighting for board here, so he's going to have to do something, or he's just going to die.
That's a good point. Yeah, this is not Control Warrior. This is Bomb Warrior. They just kill you a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, Wrench Caliber's already equipped. You have one bomb in your deck, and you know, the longer this game goes, the more likely it is you draw those. And talking about health restore, there is no Ziliax in the main deck for Kolento.
To quote the great Nathan Zamora, that's a true story.
That seems crazy to me.
To not be playing Ziliax.
Yeah. Like, maybe you forgot, it's Ziliax.
I mean, it's not unheard of. There are quite a few players who are doing that. I agree it's a good inclusion in the deck.
Dummies.
Yeah.
That was a high five, in case you were wondering. I didn't get slapped.
Dunking. Yeah. How dare you insult the player base? Whoosh.
I wonder.
As we see here, still Kolento taking this incredibly slow line of play.
I like it, though.
I also like it. I think if he's committed to a game plan of not playing the Giant on turn 5, you don't want to play it on turn 6 when you still can't conjure it.
Defend the gates!
Bozzzton gonna develop a 2/5. And start swinging away. There are no copies of the Elic, augmented Elic in Bozzzton's main deck, and so the weapon was purely for tempo. And now Kolento's going to start unleashing some power here. But this is exactly what you were talking about as well, without chipping away armor. Now Bozzzton has the armor up into 2 shield slams and gets to keep chipping away. And second Wrench Caliber drawing. That's a big deal.
This is really interesting for Bozzzton because obviously the first thing you see on this turn is just armor up, double shield slam, deals with the board. The Mountain Giant is gone, and he needs to find something else to put the second half of the Conjurer's Call on. He could, however, go Militia Commander and swing in addition to the shield slam first as well. But that churns through pretty much all his armor total, rendering the second shield slam much less effective.
Yeah, I think it's just double shield slam.
Okay.
And the reason why is because, you know, again, once your armor's shredded, you don't have access to that anymore.
Yeah, for the next couple turns, it's effectively dead.
So Bozzzton has aggressive potential and not really any answers. No Super Collider, no Brawl.
Yeah.
He will be at the mercy of how this pans out for Kolento. And Kolento, you know, still looking for those Grave Harbors in that spot. If he manages to find just 2 more Mountain Giants from the Conjurer's Calling, I think he could be in trouble.
Yeah, things do start to get a little bit scary. I'll agree with you there. Obviously, especially if we see from Bozzzton Blastmaster Boom at any point to deliver that extra damage. Now, Kolento has a somewhat more flexible turn due to the elemental evocation in his hand. If he wanted to reduce the cost of the Giant by 1, he could then go double Ray of Frost in order to get 2 freezes and absolutely mitigate all damage to his face.
I'm curious if he is going to end up on a Mana Cyclone turn here. I would... Oh my goodness, 2 more Grave Horrors.
Yeah, he's very happy to see that.
That's 25% chance to have 2 of a particular minion come out.
That's a true story.
Because there's only 2 different options.
Yes.
So both times got the major defensive overhaul. I think that Bozzzton would have probably been on shield slams regardless last turn.
Oh, regardless if they were Grave Horrors?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. I fully agree.
And for Kolento, he says that's good enough. And for Bozzzton, it's looking grim.
Yeah. This is where it all starts to fall apart. This is also, it's worth saying, a direct result of Kolento's style of play here, where he was super conservative, kept the Giants in hand until he could guarantee the Conjurers falling on them. Because if he'd just thrown them out one by one, hoping they stick, double Shield Slam would have just pretty much locked him out of the game here. Really nice line. However,
at 16 as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So it takes 4 Bombos in a row to kill him. Not 3, 4.
In a row.
That 16 is actually like...
It's huge breakpoint. However, there are 4 bombs in the deck now, right? And it's going to be a 5th once the Wrench Caliber swings for a 2nd time as well. So it is getting a little bit scary.
The Dart Frog! It's time!
Lick 'em, boys.
Oh my god, is that where Lickham's made after? Is the Dart Frog? The art?
I don't think so. I think it's just a general
It's fun to
frog.
think about.
It's great fun to think about. It's kind of a dark world then for
Look at it
Magic
go!
Dart Frog to live in, where his brethren are being made into staffs and literally being hit into other people.
2 Mountain Giants picked up on this one.
It's not terrible. Book of Spectres can just get you a little bit more juice later on.
Yeah, try to kill the 2-2.
Yeah.
Connect, Dart Frog. Activates on nothing, and now Bozzzton is officially at the mercy of the gods.
And Kolento is not going to slow down. Like, he doesn't have to overdevelop into a brawl, but even if some removal were to come down here from Bozzzton in the form of Super Collider or Brawl primarily, or pretty much exclusively, Kolento's still got the refill.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bozzzton's position right now, and there's 2 ways that he wins. Number 1, Kolento draws a heap of bombs, or number 2, Bozzzton basically picks which card he needs from his deck and plays accordingly. And so with that, I'm curious if you Warpath to set up a second Warpath,
What now?
or if you do nothing and hope to find Brawl.
Those are both interesting lines. Because if you start, say you Warpath 3 times on this turn, and then Hero Power, Kolento, I think, will be making... Oh, no, wait, he knows that there's only 1 Warpath in hand, because the first one was used early on. I was going to say, does he know that the second one's there?
Oh, you're right.
It was used on the...
So you just can't Warpath do that.
Warpath would never get there.
You mitigate the 3 immediate damage of those small minions, but now this mitigates the effectiveness of your Brawl.
And also, I mean, you swing face and then pray that you get the 3 weapons, the 3 bombs that come out.
Oh, he's just going to swing for the Mountain Giant. So once again, that breakpoint actually makes a difference. Kolento, I mean, the way that Kolento dies is just 4 bombs in a row, and that is a very low chance.
It's staggering.
Unless he decides he wants to cast Book of Spectres.
Yeah. Fair point.
Or Arcane Intellect.
Which I learned does actually activate the bombs. I wasn't sure if it would discard the bombs because it's a spell. It does activate and then draw another. I had that.
Cast Winddrawn. It's very true.
Yeah.
As to quote the great Nathan Zamora, that's a true story. To quote Darrock Brown, quoting Nathan Zamora, that's a true story. He's gonna Arcane Int. No, no. Ah!
No. You never die here. The odds are astronomical.
Well, you
see,
might
I
as well
said
play the Luna then as well.
Luna, yeah.
Rip the Frostbolt phase. Let's go. Don't do that.
That was a joke, Kolento. Yeah, you just keep developing it.
Frostbolt does play around Super Collider in this spot as well.
Oh, very good point, yeah. I think I like that. If you're not going to spend your mana on anything else.
Ah, and so Kolento's considering what Brawl actually looks like against him. His plan, I think, was to Conjurer's Calling, Frostbolt, and then Mana Cyclone, and is now considering what a top-decked Brawl from Bozzzton looks like. It's very clear that Bozzzton does not have a Brawl.
Yes.
And so he adds the Banana Buffoon to hedge against the Brawl, so that if he gets Brawled in this spot, he has bananas to add to the Mana Cyclone. And there's no use here found for Bozzzton.
Yeah, none of these are going to do it. The Rusty Recycler is obviously a pretty big roadblock that could block 8 and heal for 2.
Yeah, so
Still just dead though.
Yeah.
Block 7, sorry, and heal for 2.
Kolento with the Frostbolt and the bananas in hand actually pushes through Rusty Recycler.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he was thinking about.
All the way back on turn 1, he's thinking, you know, play the Sorcerer's Apprentice here, just in case he gets the Rusty Recycler.
I'm going to need to have extended this second Warpath out there just in case they get the Rusty Recycler. Yeah, the survival turn here for Bozzzton is ugly. Looking at Rusty Recycler, Weapons Project, Eternium Rover. This does not get it done, I don't believe. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm counting 16 damage over on Kolento's side.
That means we're on the bomb plan, which has not come to fruition.
But if it did there, I would have greatly criticized the Arcane Intellect.
Okay, fair enough. But I think obviously playing the Arcane Intellect there had its very, very slight downsides. I think overall it was the way to go.
He even found more damage.
For Bozzzton, however...
Kolento's a genius. Go on,
I agree. Do you think for Bozzzton there, he could have anticipated that the turn after he went Warpath, clear the Giant, could have been as bad as this? And therefore, should he have just swung face with the Wrench Caliber and just